right, so as he said, I'm contracting music history for honors, which all that entails is the regular coursework plus just something extra. So I have a mini lecture recital based on the paper that I wrote for this semester, and I'm also going to perform a few pieces discussed. We have all the lights on. I want this to be kind of just an open dialogue, so we're going to start right off with a discussion question. Let's free associate. What comes to mind when you hear the term atonal music? Josh?
Dissonance.
Dissonance, good. Sean? Debussy, okay. Anybody else? Dale? Wagner, okay. Based on what you know about it, why do you think people would prefer to listen to atonal music over the tonal music of the Baroque, classical, and Romantic eras of music? Sophie?
Because atonal music is sometimes less boring because it's like not as predictable.
Right. Okay, Nick?
Just simply, it's different.
It is different, yes, and you're going to see that in a second. Trey?
I believe they wouldn't and they don't.
Dale?
Because it rejects the institution of tonal music.
That's right. All right. So let's talk a little bit about writing with 12-tone equal temperament. So you guys are music students. You know what a chromatic scale is. Thank you. It's divided into all 12 notes in the octave. In this scale, the tones are divided equally, which we call equal temperament. While composers have had access to all these 12 tones for centuries now, composers such as Schoenberg were writing using the 12-tone technique. Also known as dodecaphony, the 12-tone technique uses all 12 pitches while ensuring that one pitch is not superior to the others. This results in 12-tone music not necessarily having a key center. We're going to talk about why there was a need for equal temperament and how composers such as Bach and Schoenberg composed with 12 tones differently. So essentially what the point of the 12-tone technique is, it uses all 12 pitches, but in a manner where one pitch is not superior. But if we're talking in tonal music, C major, that's your tonic, that's the most important note. Okay. So tunic system in which the octave is divided into 12 semitones of equal size. This guy, I tried to Google how to pronounce it, so if I'm getting it wrong, I'm sorry. Zhu Zaiyu, a 16th century Chinese musician and mathematician. He developed equal temperament to solve the yellow bell problem, and I'll tell you guys about what that is. So essentially, in his town, the town's bell pitch was going out of tune, and the Guangzhong, which translates to yellow bell, refers to the basic pitch to which the bell was tuned to. 12 tones came from Zayu's proportion, the 12th root of 2. I tried to research like the mathematics of all this, but truthfully, I don't understand all that. But if you want to research it, it's very interesting, and I can lead you to some resources. He determined that there needed to be a system in which the octave was divided, so all 12 tunes could tune to each other based on any other pitch, therefore eliminating the need for one superior pitch. And using that mathematical equation, the 12th root of 2, equal temperament was founded. So that takes us to a composer by the name of Johann Sebastian Bach, a German Baroque composer, virtuoso organist, church musician, and one of his most famous piano works, probably his most famous piano work, is Well-Tempered Clavier in 1722. What do we know about that piece? Anyone? Try.
It's a very popular teaching tool
It is a very popular teaching tool. Do you know why?
because that's kind of what it was written for. And
Okay.
it's also considered like the best piano etudes ever.
Okay, yeah. Dale?
It's a set of, I think it's 48
48, yeah.
total pieces, 24 preludes, 24 fugues, and every major and minor.
In every major and minor key. And as Trey said, it was used as teaching material because during the Baroque era, they played in certain keys more than others. People in the Baroque era just were not writing in A flat minor because who wants to play in that key? No. But Bach wrote a book as teaching material that contained a prelude and a fugue in all 12 major and minor keys. And believe it or not, it was so popular that he wrote another one. Alright, so the specific piece from that work that we'll be looking at today is the Bach Fugue in B minor, which is the very last work on the Well-Tempered Clavier. Just right here, this is the subject. So in a fugue, so in a fugue, essentially, it's a compositional technique in which this main melodic idea, also referred to as a subject, is introduced and then imitated in other voices using various intervals, most commonly a fifth higher. So this is the subject of Bach's Fugue in B minor, and I'll play some more of it in a bit, but right now I'm just going to play the subject for you, and it's just this. There's no left hand, there's no nothing. So that's the subject. We notice that's called Bach. It's his fugue in D minor. However, as we can see by this image here, and they're all numbered here, all 12 chromatic pitches appear. So, unlike this, but however, this piece is not considered atonal due to the presence of tonal center. More on that in a bit. Yes, so we also notice the use of tendency tones in the fugue. Most of us in here, taking music theory classes, so we kind of already understand what these are. But essentially, it's like where the pitch wants to go. So just going back to that C major, where does it want to go? It always returns to that home pitch. So I'm going to play a little bit of the fugue for you, and it's marked a very slow tempo. If you want to hear it performed really well, listen to Glenn Gould, and he goes nuts with it. So I'm going to try to play a little bit of it for you. we're in that tonality? Yeah. Anyone object? Nope. All right, so that's Bach's fugue, written a long time ago. But now we get to the 20th century with Arnold Schoenberg. Yes, this is a pretty jarring image. This is Arnold Schoenberg's self-portrait, so he painted that himself. What's that?
He's definitely a musician.
Yeah. Alright, so 20th century composer. He's known as the father of the 12-tone technique, which we talked about a little bit earlier. He moved to the United States in 1934 to flee Nazi Germany, and while he was in the United States, he was a professor at University of Southern Carolina. And the piece I focused on for this project was the second movement of his 6 little piano pieces, Opus 19, composed in 1913. One more fun fact I'd like to throw about Schoenberg. So you'll notice the depth here. When I was researching Sean,
Just to clarify, is it Southern California or Southern Carolina?
California.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Schoenberg died at the age of 76 on July 13th, 1951. So Schoenberg had a superstition of the number 13, and on July 13th, at 76 years old, 7 plus 6 equals 13. Good job, guys. He was just laying in bed, so sick and fearful, and he just died. So it's a pretty tragic way to go. So if you're afraid of a number, sorry. The emancipator of dissonance. That's what he is. So in Schoenberg's, well, I should say, one of the things that makes Schoenberg interesting from other composers is with traditional music theory, the theory was all written after it all happened. But with Schoenberg, he was writing books about his own theories, and you can check them out at the Scarborough Library, except for Theory of Harmony, because I have that one checked out. But Schoenberg hesitated to classify pitches as consonant or dissonant, and I found something like some article about like mathematics behind like consonant dissonant pitches, and it just went right through my head, so, or over my head. So, but if you're interested in that sort of thing, reach out to me. He didn't believe in a hierarchy of tones, and from doing some research, the World Wars, especially World War I, especially had an effect on Schoenberg's music. With World War I, we never had like death on that massive of a scale. It was really unprecedented. And I almost called it like an Ars Nova movement, which means new work. So that brings us to the 6 little piano pieces, Opus 19. This is the second movement. Only 9 bars long, this movement. But I'm going to play it first and then we'll talk about it. Sing down. Pretty close there. I can see why you would say G is do. And as you can see, we have all the 12 pitches numbered again. Music critic Alex Ross, whose work, The Rest is Noise, which is a neat book about the 20th century. Also, if you want to read it, you're going to have to wait till I return it to the library. That's where that quote came from, that his music is not all sound and fury. Like, I feel like, at least when I started researching atonal music and like what it was, I just imagined it was just all nonsense and there's nothing to it. However, that's not really the case. We see this motive in the left hand of the repeatedly throughout the piece. But however, nothing really resolves. In that last chord, it's a pretty jarring chord to listen to. So my conclusion is, while 12-tone music can appear to be unorderly to the untrained ear, it shares connections with music of the Baroque period with the development of motives. Schoenberg was working with the same 12 pitches as Bach. However, he had different ideas about how to use them, which led to many stirring compositions by Schoenberg. And then I have a few good on time. Questions, discussions. What were your initial preconceptions about 12-tone music? How have they changed? Somebody? Dick, try it.
So I think like, before I really understood 12 tone, I was like, duh, like I know all 12 tones, like what could be so different about them, you know what I mean? And then like I learned about triads and all this cool stuff.
Yeah.
And then I listened to more and more Schoenberg and I'm like, this is kind of weird, you know? And I think like the label of just calling stuff 12-tone music doesn't even really do it justice. Because it's so much more than like that label. And thankfully, I mean, it's accepted what 12-tone music is.
Right, yeah. Thank you. Logan.
It's kind of similar to that, like the Bach fugue.
Mm-hmm.
Like I always thought, like in order for something to be in a certain key, like it has to be like diatonic. You can only have a certain set of notes, like in the key of B minor. But
right.
like you like when you think about it, like how if it uses all 12 tones, how can there be a tonal center? But it's interesting how like the way he arranges it, like you still hold on to that B as if it was like that is the tonal center.
Yeah. Savannah?
I think I have like not a dislike of atonal music.
Okay.
Like, you know, I think after this, like, everybody has like preferences to the music that they listen to, and it still has a form, it still has like all these things to
Exactly.
it, and you can find things in it that you do like.
Thank you. Dr. Chow.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
What is the connection between Equal Temperament and The Dude in China and J.S. Bach?
Well, Bach was one of the first composers to really utilize equal temperament in his compositions. So before equal temperament, most of us, so for context, most of us that play in ensembles here, we know some basic concepts about tuning major and minor chords. So like, for example, we're told that we should play the third of the chord a little bit lower so it sounds better. Way back then, before like the modern piano was invented, they had keys for like D sharp, what's that?
Microphone.
Yeah, thank you. Like D sharp and E flat. On this piano, you would press the same key, but there were different keys, and you would play them in, you would use those keys for different ones, but Bach was able to compose works using the newly found equal temperament, and he took advantage of it with the well-tempered clavier instead of the other composers that were just composing in the standard keys.
Okay. So does it like, so did they get it directly from China?
I would say not necessarily. I mean, just that guy, the Chinese mathematician, was just the one that initially realized that there was a problem, and I haven't done research as far into like what he did with it, but essentially there was a problem and it needed to be solved, and this is what we got out of it.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. And then my second discussion question is, do you think 12-tone music is accessible to the average music listener or only to trained musicians? Emmy?
I think that it's accessible, but it's not understood.
Right.
So it's kind of leading both ways. The average music listener would understand that they can play notes, but they don't understand the form that trained musicians would. So it kind of goes either way.
I mean, I think it's still accessible because they're gonna listen to it and know that it's weird. Like they, even if they like don't know what exactly it means, like they're gonna like know that it's not like in the key, even though they don't know what that means.
Sophie?
Bouncing off of what Emmy said, like I do think it's accessible to the average music listener, but it's also like the average music listener would have to be like wanting to explore it,
Right.
and then the trained musician, I think, oftentimes puts themselves on a pedestal of like, I understand this because I'm a trained musician.
Right.
Like, I think there are many trained musicians who might not necessarily understand atonal music, but they're like, well, I'm a trained musician, so, you know, atonal music is just this really cool thing, and it's just so interesting. And so, like, there could be that crossover of, like, the average music listener who has a better sense of atonal music than a trained musician. And so I think it's not so much about your musical training, but how open you are to understanding something.
Yeah, and that was a struggle for me with this project was, could I understand, because I thought atonal music, you know, I didn't care about it, but now I kind of see how it's kind of cool. Josh?
So I think human interest in music relies a lot on pattern and then upsetting the pattern. So like
Upsetting a pattern?
upsetting a pattern.
Oh,
Right? So
upsetting,
making it
okay.
interesting, right? So Bach is like very pattern. We know when he's gonna do a thing based on how he's come before. So we know what the pattern is. We know what to expect even subconsciously, even if we're not like musically literate, right? But with Schoenberg, I think that's different because he's upsetting that pattern of like these pitches that we recognize, but not in the way we recognize. So I think that's kind of, it's almost too strange for the average person to get a hold of because there's not that rounding
Right.
amount of pattern to it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Sean?
So before I answer, do you think you could define what you mean by accessible?
When I say accessible, I guess I really mean like understood. Like if we listen to like music on the radio, you know, there are, you know, songs or lyrics that we like relate to. They can be like about someone's life or someone's struggle, you know, whatever. And so when I say accessible, I just mean like, is it understood by the general public? Does that make sense?
Okay, to that I would say probably yes.
Okay.
Especially if we think about like cartoons that use atonal music to
Oh, that's a good point.
add sound to stuff that's moving. People don't need to know anything about music to say, oh, that tree fell. Oh, these notes just woo.
Yeah, like when you're a little kid watching cartoons at 5, you're not sitting there, you're like, oh wow, they used all 12 pitches. But
you can understand what it's representing.
Right, okay, that's a good perspective that I didn't think about. Thank you, Dale.
I think the composer's intention, which is mostly what Sean was saying, a composer like Pierre Boulez, who's super academic, probably did not care if people understood his music or not. You either studied it or you didn't. Whereas someone like Paul Lambert,
Yeah.
really used 12-tone music to convey nihilism, which was like really prominent in the early 20th century. So it really depends on what the composer wants you to understand. I think the average music listener can, it's just a matter of what is the composer giving
Right.
to make it understandable.
Mm-hmm. Try.
I think that orally 12-tone music is equally accessible to everybody.
Okay.
Because I think that like only like the top cream of the crop musicians are gonna be like, oh 9, oh, you know, and they're gonna be able to follow that. And I think that like the same effect is present across all. But I do think the difference comes in hindsight and analysis when you do apply the mathematical side to it. And I think that was part of Schoenberg's intentions. And I also think that like the presence of 12-tone technique in modern orchestral composition is very accessible because it is part of like a standard list of techniques now. Whereas before it was avant-garde and it was extremism. So I think that like, it kind of like we were talking about in theory, like with minimalist techniques, it's like it boils down more to the application of it in more accessible music than just that specific niche.
Mm-hmm.
So
Thank you. Any final thoughts? Okay, well, a few acknowledgements. I would like to thank Dr. Austin Shannon for guiding me through this project and just being an overall supporter. And then I guess she wasn't able to make it today, but she told me she might, which was making me a little bit nervous. But Dr. Sally Brasher, the director of the honors program, for guiding me through the process for contracting an honors course. That's all I have for today. Thank you all for your participation.
yeah.